Assalamu alaikum. Good evening and welcome. My name is Mohammed Sharif and I'm a biochemistry PhD candidate at the University at Buffalo. I would like to personally welcome everyone to the 13th annual MPAC Western New York Banquet. Thank you for being here and taking part in this special event. With that, I'm honored to be co-chairing tonight's event with my beautiful wife and better half, Juwaria.
Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Good evening, everyone. My name is Juwaria Dahir, and I'm a graduate student in the School of Architecture and Planning at the University at Buffalo. I also work in the Division of Citizen Services at City Hall. I'm delighted to be this year's banquet chair. This year's theme is E Pluribus Unum, in Latin, meaning out of many, one, as written on the Great Seal of the United States. Tonight, we will be honoring and commending our exemplary youth for their achievements in academics, athletics, leadership, and character. As many of you know, MPAC actively strives to effect policy reforms that uphold core American values and preserve constitutionally protected freedoms of all Americans.
Again, on behalf of the Muslim Public Affairs Council Organizing Committee, welcome. It is our pleasure to see you all here today. At this point, I would like to invite Fadi Subh, one of our last year's millennial recipients, for Quran recitation and translation.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قال رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي واجعل لي وزيرا من أهلي هارون أخي اشدد به أزري واشركه في أمري كي نسبحك كثيرا ونذكرك كثيرا إنك كنت بنا بصيرا صدق الله العظيم. Now I will read the English translation. Musa said, O my Lord, open for me my chest, grant me self-confidence, contentment, and boldness, and ease my task for me, and make loose the knot, the defect from my tongue, that they understand my speech, and appoint for me a helper for my family. Harun, my brother, increase my strength with him, and let him share my task of conveying Allah's message and prophethood, that we may glorify you much and remember you much. Verily, you are of us ever a well-seer.
Fadi, thank you for your wonderful words. I would like to take a moment to introduce a man who has truly answered the call to community service. His dedication and hard work are a testament to what service is all about. He is currently president and one of the founders of MPAC Western New York. He's also chairman of the Orchard Community and Initiatives, which is a community organization that advocates for affordable housing and low-income families. Finally, he is also a chaplain of Niagara County Correctional Facility. Please join me in welcoming Zaid B. Islam.
Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As you can see, we are moving towards young, new leadership in MPAC. They say if you plant a tree or drop a seed in the earth, you pray that the earth and the fertilization of the earth and your care of that earth will make sure that those seeds will grow. And we hope that these seeds will grow into strong new leadership. Some of us are a little older than some other folks, and we've been at this a long time. It's refreshing to see young folks step into the role of leadership, and we should encourage them. we should constantly encourage our youth, our young adults, to strive for leadership in America, because this is where their families will grow for generations. And I will say this, and I can defend myself on this, that America, the United States of America, is the best place for Muslims to strive and show the rest of the Islamic world what freedom, what justice, and equality and citizenship is all about. I welcome you to our 13th annual MPAC Banquet. Peace be unto you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Up next, it is our honor to invite the founding president and senior advisor of MPAC Western New York.
Dr. Khalid Kazi specializes in internal medicine and graduate medical education. He is the former residency program director at Catholic Health, Buffalo, New York, and has been in practice for more than 20 years. Dr. Ghazi is the founding president and senior advisor of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. To his many admirers, like myself, he is a courageous advocate for the rights of all Americans, in particular, the rights of the minority and the marginalized members in society. He has been called one of the most influential American Muslims in Western New York and is credited with his leadership in the community and his passion to be of service. Dr. Ghazi, please join us on stage.
Thank you for that kind introduction. If my parents were in the audience, especially my mom, may God bless their soul, she would say, "Yeah, that's my boy." And then my father would look at her and say, "What?" But anyway, thanks for that kind introduction, Joaria. I am so delighted to welcome you all to our premier event. This truly has become the premier event of the Muslims of Western New York. But this has also become the event where Western New York really comes together, because we are so blessed to have our fellow citizens of all stripes in our gathering, of all ideologies, of all faiths, or no faith amongst us. And we truly take pride in that, but more importantly, we take that very seriously. It does not come automatically. We have worked very hard for days like this. But it also is a fact that none of this would be possible without you. And look around you, you will find your friends, your neighbors, and your fellow citizens who care about our community and our region. We are truly blessed to have you and call you as our friends. Thank you. I would like to recognize a few of my friends, and if I forget anybody, please forgive me, because that's the danger in recognizing some, because then you drop out somebody else. But I can't not recognize those of you who know that I have spent 40 years at Sisters Hospital, which is my home, has been, and Catholic Health System from its inception. And I want to ask Mr. McDonald to take a bow, and his wife. Thank you very much. Catholic Health has really, given me my position, my status, and I could not have asked for anything more or anything better. Thank you so much. And I also know that although I started at Sisters, but it was the mission of the hospital and the system that kept me in the system. Thank you. I also want to recognize other sponsors. gold sponsor Adnan and Josephine Siddiqui, the bronze sponsors Catholic Health and Wegmans, who have always been with us throughout, and business tables, Mr. Kreiner of UBS Financial Services, Independent Health, and Mr. Mana, Joseph Mana from Lipset, Green, Scribe, and Cambria LLP. Thank you very much for your support and sponsorship, and KeyBank and M&T Bank, as they always have been. And I also want to recognize Sister Margaret Carney, who just recently retired as the president of St. Bonaventure University. I am so delighted to see you, sister, and it has been a great privilege and honor to know you. Sister Patricia Brady from Canisius College, who has been working with us for tutoring refugee kids in west side of Buffalo, and has been really very helpful in providing some service learners as volunteers for MPAC for tutoring purposes. Mike Wiener and his wife, Gina, thank you so much for coming, president of United Way. It's a pleasure to work with him on his board all the time. And I also want to recognize the president of newly formed Arab American Business Association, Adil. I don't know, Adil, where you are. Where are you? Yes. So congratulations on your new assignment. And we have Tom Hack from Representative Chris Collins' office here. We also have many conflicts tonight with graduations. In fact, one of our honorees is at a graduation in Kleinheim, so we had to change the program a little bit, put the awards later after dinner for that reason. And I know the mayor and the county executive are coming, but they're also stuck with all these, events everywhere else. And I don't want to forget our interfaith partners, because that is a big priority for us. And thank you, whether they are a network of religious communities or Westminster Presbyterian Church or Catholic Diocese or Jewish Federation or other partners in interfaith dialogue and conversation. We could not be where we are without our interfaith partners. Thank you very much for that. And with that, I give it back to the co-chairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ghazi. At this time, we are delighted to serve dinner. Please enjoy your dinner, and the program will resume after we have dinner. Thank you. I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker. This year, we have selected Mr. Salam Al-Maryati. Mr. Salam is nationally recognized for his commitment to improving the public understanding of Islam and policies impacting American Muslims. Salam is president and co-founder of the Muslim Public Affairs Council. He oversees MPAC's groundbreaking civic engagement, public policy, and advocacy work. He is an expert on Islam in the West, Muslim reform movements, human rights, democracy, national security, and Middle East politics. He has spoken at the White House, Capitol Hill, and represented the U.S. at international human rights and religious freedom conferences. His writings have appeared in every major national news publication, including the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and Los Angeles Times. But his most recent op-ed in the LA Times on why Muslims don't really need Trump to tell them when to support criminal activity. His interviews have been featured on national and international news outlets, including CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and C-SPAN. Please help me welcome Mr. Salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you so much for inviting me to such a wonderful occasion. The work of the Muslim Public Affairs Council, Western New York, has really been a jewel for our national organization. And first and foremost, I see, as Zaid said, the work of including more young people in our program. And I just wanted to acknowledge Juria and Mohammed for their great work and contributions, because the future is in the leadership of our young people. And we thrive when young people are part of our organization. I want to thank Bayram, Khalid, Zaid, and Fatima, and the whole board for their great work here in Western New York as really one of the shining examples of how local work can help our national agenda. I also want to pause for a second. Let's thank all the people who have been serving us at this hotel for the fine effort in giving us hospitality and comfort. And I hear that this is a Moroccan chef who gave us this couscous, so I hope you're enjoying that. This is part of the great tradition of E Pluribus Unum, not just for many people we are one, but for many foods we are one. So want to thank them for that. Khalid told me some great things about Buffalo. He said that MGM, Zaid said this too, MGM started here. The Hollywood studio, it started in Buffalo, and that there's a lighthouse that started in Buffalo just across the street, the largest one for quite some time. So they're beginning to make me believe that everything started in Buffalo. Like, you know, my big fat Greek wedding, when the father keeps saying all of civilization started in Greece, now I'm beginning to believe that they believe everything in America started in Buffalo. So I'm looking for the movie, My Big Fat Buffalo Wedding, in the future. It would be a great contribution. But I'm also happy to see that Buffalo is bustling, it's on the rise, and a great example, not just in terms of economic development, but in terms of interfaith work. And it's great to see Muslims leading with Christians and Jews and people of all faiths in interfaith work, because that is what America, interfaith in the 21st century means that we are practicing our faith in the 21st century. The Millennial Awards that MPAC Western New York has done, again, is a shining example of planting the seeds. As the Quran says, a good word is like a good tree. Once it's planted, then it grows great fruit that will sustain people for as long as God wants, and it has firm roots. And so we continue to do that work in terms of leadership development. We have our program in New York, in Washington, our policy summit in Hollywood, our Hollywood summit, where we bring young people to get them to learn about all these endeavors that they can work on. You know, when I became president of Muslim Public Affairs Council, people ask me, how did it all start? I said, you know, my dad sat me down after I graduated from high school, and he says, I want you to choose the major in college that you will like the most, because then you'll be the best at it. And then he asked me the next night, he says, what have you decided? Are you going to be a doctor or an engineer? And I tried both. I was an engineer for 2 years, and then I started this work, and thank God that it worked, because, you know, at the beginning, you can see back in 1986 when we started this about 30 years ago, that there was still a concern that we were only going to produce doctors or engineers. And we're still producing doctors and engineers to this day, which is great. But we do need more civic engagement that MPAC Western New York is promoting, and more healthy government relations that MPAC Western New York is doing. Now, I go to different cities, and I hear the same thing everywhere. I go, you know, we do have great interfaith work. We do know our local government officials. We are involved in the media, and that's true. Every local Muslim community is doing great work. But we still have a problem, and that is the absence of a national Muslim voice in U.S. public policy discourse. Pundits and politicians are talking about us. They are not talking to us. And we have to figure out a way to change that, because we cannot afford to be invisible, especially when Islam is part of the news every single day. So local communities are doing great work. MPAC National's job is to connect all the local work and then establish the national American Muslim voice on all these kinds of issues. And we are working these days. We know that there are a lot of problems, especially with the challenges in this current administration. But at the same time, we have a great system of democracy, and I would say this democracy is holding up very, very well in terms of the rights of all Americans. And I would say that the American Muslim community has gained from this experience. As the Quran says, "Inna ma'al usri yusra, inna ma'al usri yusra." With every difficulty comes ease. Not after the difficulty, but with it. With every crisis comes opportunity, so there are opportunities for us as American Muslims. What are those opportunities? We are working on national security because we are demanding that law enforcement and Department of Homeland Security and all of federal law enforcement treats the American Muslim community as partners, not suspects. The lesson from Japanese-American internment is that they were treated as a suspect community and there was nobody there to defend them. We have to start the defense by going right to law enforcement and saying, how can we work as partners so that communities are not negatively impacted? And the LA Times op-ed that we wrote was, American Muslims don't need Trump to report criminal activity because it's part of our Islamic obligation. Our Islamic obligation is to protect life and to protect our community. So we've been working on national security as part of an Islamic obligation. We have also, this last month, I am very proud to announce that MPAC with the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, have worked together to promote bipartisan legislation to protect victims of hate crimes, so the Department of Justice has to prosecute hate crimes wherever they see it. This is a great American story. We are making a difference. While the country is divided, the most it has been divided since the Civil War, the answer will come with people who will bridge the divide. The answer will come with people who will hold on to the middle ground. As the Quran says, you have been made to be an ummah of the middle way. We are a community of the middle ground. We are not going to be taken by the left or by the right. We will be right there in the middle and work with both and try to be that bridge. We have been working with the Department of Justice Civil Community Relations Service to do hate crimes work in all communities. Buffalo is in good shape, especially that table that's talking a lot. They're still talking. Los Angeles is in good shape. Chicago is in good shape. But what about the Muslim refugee community in Kansas, in the rural parts of Ohio, in Tennessee, in Alabama? How are we going to protect them? Our work with the Department of Justice then will require them to go and help them as much as they help us, and I would argue they should help them more because we can take care of ourselves. We already have the relationships. Khalid knows who to call here when there's a problem. I know who to call when there's a problem. But for those refugee communities that have nobody there to protect them, we need to make sure that the Department of Justice is doing their job, and MPAC is working with them to do exactly that. We also have to help the vulnerable in other communities. I work in Los Angeles. Just down the street, there is a school where the father dropped off his daughter, a 12-year-old. While he dropped her off, he was taken by immigration, and he is there to this day because of something that happened 13 years ago that was not a violent crime. We have to protect vulnerable communities because to work for them means we're working for the rights of all people. Islam is not an entitlement religion. Islam is a service to humanity religion. And we have to work for the service of all of humanity. Now, I know there are debates in our community about the different approaches of what we should do. And unfortunately, we keep getting the false dichotomy. We have the debate, we should work for civil rights, not national security. We should work for national security, not civil rights. We should engage. No, we should boycott. If you boycott, that undermines our engagement. If you engage, that undermines our boycott. We should work with the ACLU. No, we should work with law enforcement, as if they are mutually exclusive. The Quran tells us not to get entangled in the details. As the Quran says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب. True piety is not turning your face east or west. In other words, the Muslims were criticized because they were praying towards Jerusalem. At one point, they changed towards Mecca. And the Quran says it's not about what the details are. And the scholars are saying this is all about understanding what piety is, and that is the belief system and then the work. And the rest of the verse talks about the work in helping free people, in helping the orphans, in helping the refugees, and in being patient and perseverant, and in establishing the prayer and paying zakat. That's true piety. Not how to do it, and there are definitely different ways of doing it. And Malcolm X has a great quote on that. Yesterday was Malcolm X's birthday. He would have been 92 years old. He said, "The problem facing our people is bigger than all other personal or organizational differences. Therefore, as leaders, we must stop talking about the threat we seem to think we pose to each other's personal prestige, and concentrate on our united efforts towards solving the unending hurt that is being done to our people in America." That holds true as much today as it did back in the early 60s when Malcolm X said that. I asked a young man here, Ahmed Iqbal, is he here, table 16? Is Ahmed here? Oh, he left. Well, I was talking to him before the dinner, and I said, "What do you think we should be talking about as Muslims?" He said, "To be equal." He's a fourth grader. He's 9 years old. And the purity of the young mind and the young soul is something that we should preserve when we are jaded by all the politics around us. Because the Quran tells us exactly what Ahmed said. We should always be working for the principles of our faith, not get entangled in the politics of the day-to-day affairs. Now, President Trump traveled to Saudi Arabia today, and he's going to Israel and then the Vatican so that he can bring the world religions back together. Aside from his qualifications or lack thereof on that matter, if he really wants to bring religions together, he should do it here in America, because Christians, Muslims, and Jews are working together, and we can help the rest of the world deal with these differences. And instead of going to Saudi Arabia, the southern part of the Arabian Peninsula, we could do it on the South Lawn, our house, the White House. But yet the story is, whether Melania or Ivanka are going to wear headscarves or not. They always go to the headscarf. And then, how are they going to align against the big Shia evil of the region? They crippled Egypt in the 50s. They crippled Iraq in the 90s. And now they're going after another country, Iran. I'm not here to defend any government. In my opinion, all the Muslim governments are part of the problem, not part of the solution. But they are attacking the people, and the Iranian people, along with the French people, have decided to vote for moderation. Where is the United States government going to stand now? We need to stop resorting to war and arming countries that do nothing but go and target civilian populations. So, we now are being told, where's your reform in Islam? But when you go to Saudi Arabia and you talk about reform, and reform is really about war, that's not reform. You cannot hold reform hostage to the geopolitics of the Middle East. That then is not reform. Reform is about going back to the principles and the essence of the faith and upholding them no matter what time and what place. Ibn al-Qayyim, a great Muslim thinker, said this in the 14th century. He said, and he's talking about Sharia, and this is a term we will get to after this quote. He says, Sharia is founded upon wisdom and welfare for the servants in this life and the afterlife. In its entirety, it is justice, mercy, benefit to humanity, wisdom. Every matter which abandons justice for tyranny, mercy for cruelty, benefit for corruption, and wisdom for foolishness is not part of the Sharia, even if it was introduced therein by interpretation. That was in the 14th century. Those words apply as much, if not more, today than ever before. Now, in the Quran, the word islah, which means reform or to repair, is mentioned over 50 times. Islam demands reform. So when somebody asks me, does Islam need reform? It's like asking, does reform need reform? What is needed is the reform of Muslim political thought. And my argument, my personal opinion, is that we have to declare our independence from the Middle East and South Asia. Islam in America should not be determined by whoever is controlled in Riyadh or Karachi or Tehran or Cairo. It should be determined by people in Buffalo and Los Angeles and Chicago and every other American city. We have to define the American Islamic experience and not be beholden to those over there who are playing geopolitics and using Islam for power or validation of power. As Zaid said, he said, America is the best place for American Muslims to practice their religion. I know mullahs that say they will not walk in their robes on the streets of Tehran for fear of retaliation from people. I know people in the Gulf who say, we don't want to talk about Islam. So you either join the government if you want to be a preacher, or you join an underground movement. As we like to say here, that's all messed up. Here in America, we are free to assemble. We are free to think. We are free to have Muslim women as part of the leadership of the Muslim Ummah, which is what Islam intended it to be. And so Islam to us is determined by the two major sources, the Quran and the authenticated, non-controversial Sunnah tradition of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's it. The Aqidah is very clear. The rest is up to our community to decide how to implement these principles. And here we are free to have Sunni, Shia, or as my mentor used to say, sushi, because it doesn't matter. That conflict was 1,400 years ago. For all intents and purposes, nobody here was at the scene of the crime. There is no more evidence. We don't have an FBI probe. We can't fire the director. We can't install a new director to determine who was guilty 1,400 years ago. It doesn't matter. What is most important to us is how we are Muslim and how we work together as a Muslim community, as a Muslim ummah from America, so that we move away from the lie of this thing called Islam versus the West. Islam is not a geography, and the West is not a religion. But those people who promote the clash of civilizations are basically promoting more war, and they are promoting more sectarianism now in the region. we have to be ready for sectarianism now to hit us in America. And that's why we have at MPAC a document that Khalid signed and American Muslim leaders signed called the Code of Honor. That Code of Honor says you can decide whatever school of thought you want, but that's your private business. Do not come and impose that on anyone else. And if we have a difference theologically among the schools of thought that applies to our day here, let the scholars have a discussion in front of us. Don't fight it out in our community. So that code of honor is needed now more than ever. And we should take that code of honor and go to the embassies that claim that they represent Islam and tell them, you need to abide by the code of honor. When you don't, we will call you out. And we should tell the State Department, do not promote any policies that engender more sectarianism in the region, because it will hurt America in the long run. That is the code of honor that we should be promoting. Now, people also talk about reform in other areas. Mormons went through a reform. And in their reform, they gave up polygamy, and they became part of the U.S. political party system. They gave up the Mormon party system. Catholics went through reform. Here in America, there was the Catholic scare. And American Catholics had to demonstrate that the word of the Vatican is not going to impact them as American citizens, even though it will impact their faith. But their faith is part of being good Americans, exactly like American Muslims are today. JFK made one of his most important speeches on the separation of church and state to basically say, I'm not beholden to the Vatican, I am beholden to the American people. American Jews went through a reform movement, yet they kept the space for Orthodox Jews in religious life. Two important points from that. Number one, when we talk about reform, we do not need to give up tradition. It's not like you either have modernity or tradition. Tradition is part of the corpus of jurisprudence that we want our scholars to continue thinking about as they think about Islam being applied to this moment, America, 21st century, not to make it 1,000 years ago from some far-off place where Islam then becomes irrelevant. And then the second point is that in every religion, there is human dignity. The Quran says, God has bestowed dignity on the children of Adam. So religion without human dignity is not true religion. That is the reform we want to work for in America. So this Islam versus the West paradigm is a lie that keeps on giving. And we have to change it from Islam versus the West to Islam in the West, for the West, by the West. We are the West. We are not some foreign objects here in America. And therefore, that American Islamic experience will speak to these cultural biases and geopolitical exploitations that we see too often, unfortunately. The U.S. Constitution has very important principles that are actually similar to what our Islamic principles are. When it says that the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, this idea of e pluribus unum, it is about equality and equal protection under the law. That is exactly what Islam says. And in fact, the Supreme Court has commemorated the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, at the Supreme Court as a major lawgiver for civilization. Next to Solomon, next to Moses, you have the Prophet Muhammad. They cannot take that away from us. And the Quran says, obey God and his apostles, and those with whom you have entrusted authority. It is a process of entrustment that the Quran is underscoring as a democratic process. And of course, the preamble of the U.S. Constitution also talks about establishing justice, which is throughout the Quran, as the Quran says, justice is next to piety. The U.S. Constitution is meant for securing the blessings of liberty, which is exactly what our shahada is. When we say there is no God but the one God, we believe in one God, we have to believe in one human family, and therefore we liberate ourselves from any man telling us we have to bow down to him, because we only bow down to God. The Quran says in Surah 49, verse 13, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائلا لتعارفوا. O humanity, speaking to all of humanity, not just Muslims, we have created you from a single pair, a male and a female, and made you into different nations and tribes so that you might come to know one another. So diversity is God's gift to humanity and God's mandate to those who are serving humanity. In Surah 5, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 48, it says, لِكُلٍّ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ شِرْعَةً وَمَنْهَاجًا وَلَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَجَعَلَكُمْ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَلَكِنْ لِيَبْلُوكُمْ فِي مَا أَتَاكُمْ فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ. To each of you, we have given a different law and a different way. If it were God's will, he would have made you into one community, but he will test you with the different messages that he has given you. Therefore, go and compete with each other to do good work. He is acknowledging not only ethnic diversity in Surah 49, but religious diversity in Surah number 5. That is God's mandate. And this word shir'atan is the word sharia. So we have to redefine these issues for ourselves in American Muslim life in the 21st century. When we look at the goals of Sharia, Sharia simply means the way. It is not necessarily the law. The law is the human interpretation and the process of jurisprudence that comes in different countries. It's called fiqh. That is not to be confused with Sharia. Sharia means the way. And the Sharia says there's a Jewish way and a Christian way and a Muslim way, and within each way, we human beings have made 100 different ways. So there is no one way to God. God is too big to have one religion or one school of thought. So the goals of Sharia are to develop and preserve the rights to life, mind, faith, property, and family. That is equal, synonymous to the pursuit of life, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is how we as American Muslims have the understanding of not only being a part of America, but contributing to America in enriching its pluralism. So, brothers and sisters, this is an opportunity, not just a crisis. We have that opportunity so that America can be a place for the rebirth of Islam in a way that is relevant to our young people and to our fellow Americans, in a way that is enriching, not just a reaction to the geopolitics of the Middle East and South Asia. We have, as Dr. Hassan Hathout, Allah yarhamu, God rest his soul, said, Islam will rise from the West as it has risen from the East. We do not need to look to the East for religious direction. We have our own authenticity and our own direction. I like to say that MPAC is a peddler of hope. Hope not as an opioid, but hope as a compass for our direction. Because if we move through this dark tunnel and find that light that will shine at the end of the tunnel, where it will spread throughout our society, that is the direction for Islam in America, to be enriching, to be positive, to be vibrant, to be something that gives power to American Muslims, so that Islam in America will be known for what it is, so that Islam in America is defined by us, not defined by others, so that Islam in America can be part of that Pluribus Unum. From many, we are one, and as Ahmed Iqbal says, we work for the equality of all human beings. Thank you very much. Salam alaikum.
Thank you very much, Salam. It's not that quick that you can run away. Forget about it. Just by way of full disclosure, We're going to break for 15, 20 minutes for evening prayers. This is the time for our evening prayers. For those of you who are, ready to pray, we'll be right across the hall in the other room. And during that time, please enjoy your dessert, and we'll be back. And we have some dynamite millennials we have to give awards for. And we didn't do it earlier because one of them was at the graduation. She just walked in. So we'll be giving the awards after Salah, after the prayers.
Okay.
And then we will also have Salam back to answer your questions. So enjoy your dessert. And Muhammad, you want to give the adhan, call for praise?
Yeah. Sweeten yourselves up with the dessert, then ask the questions.
Hi. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. Thank you.
Before we continue, I'd just like to thank our keynote speaker, Mr. Salam, for that thought-provoking message and really intellectually engaging aspect of why we're here today. If we can put our hands together one more time for him. At this time, it is my honor to invite the county executive of our great county of Erie to say a few words to our honorees and guests.
Thank you, Juwaria. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening. It's been a long evening, and I don't want to take up too much time. I want to thank Mr. Al-Maradi for the words of wisdom that he brought to us today. I've been on the stage before. It's been a difficult last year, as we all know. And I want to thank the members of not only the Muslim Public Affairs Council of Western New York, but of the Muslim community of Western New York for the way you stood up for not only your own community, but other communities in need. I think it's incredibly perfect that the theme of tonight's banquet is E Pluribus Unum, out of many, one. If you think back of the history of the Christian, Jewish, and of course Islam religions, and we all in some ways are based out of one. We are all the sons and daughters of Abraham. And this year has been a very trying year in many different ways. It was a little less than a year ago when, of course, there was the horrible shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, and how fingers were pointed because the shooter happened to be Muslim, but people came together in this community to say, that is not the Muslim way. Christians, Jews, and members of the Muslim faith. And then, when there were threats, as we've seen quite a few of them, threats against Jewish community centers not only across the country, but here, the Jewish Community Center in Buffalo, we all rallied as a community. We all rallied as one. And members of MPAC and members of the Muslim community were there, saying those threats against the Jewish Community Center are threats against all of us. We, as a community, are stronger in some ways because of these actions, because we come together as a community to show that we support each other. I've said it before, and I'll say it again now. We, as a community in Western New York, are not defined by the vile hatred statements of the very few. But we are defined as a community when we come together as a community, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, to say we will not tolerate that in our community. And that makes me proud to be your county executive. Because when I go to an event and I see people of all faiths coming together saying, you do not represent the city of Buffalo, you do not represent the county of Erie. You do not represent Western New York when you put a swastika on the side of a child's playground, when you go out there and you write anti-Muslim words on a wall, you do not represent us, but we represent what is good about our community. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, even though it has been a trying year, I want to thank each and every one of you for standing up not only for your own faith, but the faiths of others, and saying we will not tolerate that in our community. Because when you do that, you send a message to each and every one of the other members of the community that, like E Pluribus Unum, out of many we are one, and we are stronger together when we are one. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, once again, I want to thank you. To the awardees, these incredible youth, I talk about the future of our community, and I know our community is in incredible hands when I see the awardees year after year at MPAC's Banquet, knowing that these are the future leaders of not only the city of Buffalo, Erie County, but of America. And that is what we stand for. Thank you. And they all deserve another round of applause because they are representing what is good about America. They are representing what is good about our region. They just happen to be Muslim. And that is what is key. They are representing the values of our country just as they represent the values of their religion, and they represent the best of all of us in America. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, I want to congratulate you once again. And I think now it is time for the awards, correct?
Thank you, Erie County Executive, for your kind words. Now it's my favorite part of the night. We would like to re-invite Dr. Ghazi to stage to present the Muslim Millennial Awards.
Thank you, Muhammad Jawaria. Thank you so much, County Executive Mark, for spending time with us and sharing your thoughts with us. We always appreciate your time with us. And I have this distinct pleasure to introduce a panel of judges that finally decided on the awards for the Outstanding American Muslim Millennials. And I would request them, ask them to come to the podium so they can tell us what they did and how they did it. Professor Mustafa Gökçek, who is Associate Professor of History and Director of Interdisciplinary Studies at Niagara University. Professor Philip Stevens, Jr., who is the professor in the Department of Anthropology at State University of New York, right here at Buffalo. And Tim Wenger, Operations Manager at Entercom, WBE and Radio, and Director of the Digital Strategy Content. And we also have the fourth judge, Dr. Anna Siari, who is the Assistant Superintendent of Williamsville Central School District, who could not be with us tonight, but had been an integral part of this selection process. So I would ask Tim to take the podium. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not a professor, and I don't know why I got chosen to be on the committee, but Dr. Kazi is gracious enough to have me, and it's been an honor to be part of this. Talk about a group. I mean, we've got 3 educators and then myself and radio to help come up with a very diverse group of awardees tonight, 2 of which we're going to introduce to you, and 4 of others that you'll hear about. I was going to introduce the judges, but that's been done already, but I do want to thank each of them by name. Dr. Anna Sieri, who could not be here tonight, Professor Mustafa Gökçek, who you will hear from momentarily, right behind me, and then the guy with 2 last names, Philip Stevens, right here. He's in a hurry. He's going to Florida tomorrow morning at like 4 in the morning, so we got to wrap this thing up. We looked at this with 4 different categories, and it's important to Dr. Kazi for you to know that he has nothing to do with the awards other than coming up with the concept. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. He threw us into a room, he gave us the packet of information, which was this thick, and we went through those applications individually at first, and then we came together as a group, and it was a very difficult task. Each and every person that applied for this is deserving of it. The same thing was the case last year. One of our awardees last year, Fadi Subo, is here. You heard from him earlier this evening, and he just graduated from UB today. So I was proud to announce his name last year. We considered education and scholarship, we considered community service, we considered leadership, and we considered ethics in our decisions. Let's jump right to the awards, and I have the privilege to introduce to you tonight a young lady from Williamsville North High School. Yes, high school. She's a junior. And when you read through this packet of information that this young lady has a resume of a sort has accrued, it's incredible. It is a resume that people 10 years her senior would dream to have. Husna Rahim, sitting right down here in front, is a junior, completing her junior year at Williamsville North High School. I will not read the whole packet or we'll be here all night, and Philip Stevens will never get to Florida. She's in the French Club. She participates in Science Olympiad, Varsity Golf, Astronomy Club, Muslim Student Association. She has achieved mastery level grade in college credit in world history and AP psychology, Science Olympiad, Refugee Club. I could go on and on and on. But there's one thing that really caught my eye in her application that I think stands out, and I'm going to read it to you. I believe that an achievement should not just be based off the number of certificates or awards you own. Instead, an achievement, in my opinion, is making a difference in whatever you're involved in, or even by challenging yourself in something that may be hard for you. One example is track. Having asthma ever since I was a child, I used to be in the hospital days on end. Having this disease not only prevented me from participating in activities such as sledding, skiing, friends' birthdays, as well as school events such as field days and ice cream socials, but it also became part of my identity that I soon began to think of as a curse. Motivated to overcome this, I decided to challenge my disease with a sport that would compete with my lungs the most. Although I never became the fastest runner on the team, to me this is an achievement because I went from the girl who went out of breath just by walking up the stairs to the girl who competed in 600-meter races. Come on up. You know, as a father of track athletes, I can tell you it is a sport of stamina, and the fact that she wanted to go out and go after that says an awful lot about her persistence, and we congratulate you. Come on up here.
Hello and Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon everyone. I'd like to start off by thanking the judges and the Muslim Public Affairs Council for giving the opportunity to me and other aspiring Muslim Americans. I feel that this award not only motivates, but also inspires others like me to push themselves to make a positive impact in our community. Islam is the most negatively portrayed religion today. With this negative portrayal highlighted every day through the news, various social media sites, many audience members and fellow classmates, as well as teachers and workers, tend to live their life being constantly misinformed about the religion and its followers. In order to combat this, as a proud American Muslim, I feel that it is my duty, as well as other Muslims, to represent our peaceful religion in the best way possible. This can be achieved by voicing our views and opinions, involvement in school, and in the community as well. Through these efforts, we can significantly lessen the negative light constantly brought upon Islam. By increasing our social involvement, by becoming MPAC board members, doctors, lawyers, Muslim humanitarian activists, we can prove that in actuality, Muslims are helping to make a positive difference in the world by finding cures, saving lives, and fighting legal battles for equality. Receiving this award, I feel truly blessed. I'm still not sure if this is a dream or reality, but I would still like to end with thanking MPAC once again, and especially Dr. Kazi, for creating events like these and making them possible. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure you know what they are getting. The first thing they have is a beautiful plaque that has Arabic inscription on top, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and there is a logo of MPAC, and then there is the text that says 2017 Outstanding American Muslim Millennial Award, Husna Rahim, in recognition of your commitment to Islamic values of community service and professionalism, outstanding academic achievements, and superb organizational and leadership skills. 13th Annual Banquet, May 20th, 2017, Buffalo, New York. So that's one. Then there are certificates from Congressman Brian Hickens' office and Congressman Chris Collins' office, and a special certificate from the county executive's office also. Thank you so much for providing that. This also goes with a cash award of $1,001. Thank you.
So it's my pleasure to introduce Aman Shama. And it was such an inspiring experience to go through these applications with all the real and fake news that is going around, but all bad news. These were really a beacon of hope for the future of our community and our country. And it is so many accomplishments, even impossible to read on this stage, but just to name a few of those. Aman was among the top 10 freshmen with the highest GPA at Lehman College, and she was part of the honors program since 2012. She presented at the Academic Festival poster with a research title, Correlates and Predictors of College Students' Health Behaviors in 2015. Among her academic successes, she was part of the college tennis Division II, and the Athletic Scholar of the Year, the recipient of the Sportsmanship Award, the Lighthouse Leadership Award recipient, and the next correspondent writing articles for the Buffalo News. Also the Western New York Brain Bee winner in 2012, the Business First Community All-Star in 2012, the silver medalist at Science Olympiad, state finalist in 2011, and beyond those, there are many professional achievements. I'm not going to be able to count them all here, but she was able to attend more than a dozen research and clinical experience in hospitals and various clinics. Beyond those, there are leadership experiences, student assistant in the Student Success Center, academic coach, physician assistant, captain of NCAA Division II tennis team, author of My Hijab essay in the high school. As if these were not enough, she was also involved with the service activities in the Sunday school, volunteer and teacher at the Nur Mosque from 2012 to 2014, math and writing teacher assistant, served as mentor for the Higher Education Opportunity Program, house rehabilitation, UNIS blood drive, on and on and on. And so for all of those many accomplishments, Aman. Congratulations.
Thank you. I can say growing up right here in Western New York, I am among so many Muslims who have excelled not only in their profession, but in the community at large. I know when I was younger, I would come to these MPAC events. I would attend Sunday school, waking up early. I would go to the mosque and participate in the Sisters Youth Group. And they were led by such outstanding individuals that they helped foster my Muslim American identity. Their inspiration has led me to be a leader in all of my endeavors and is such an integral part of my current success. I'd like to just say thank you for bestowing this award on me, and I hope to continue making my hometown Muslim community proud. Thank you.
So we, as the committee, were asked to select a winner and possibly a runner-up. But we found ourselves in a quandary because we had 4 more contestants who were outstanding and were the very model, each one of them, the model of the ideal that we were looking for in a young Muslim millennial. And you know that category of millennial covers a number of years, and the more years you are in that category, we assume, the more accomplishments you have. And we could not come up with a way to balance seniority and juniority and account for that. And so we decided we wanted to honor all 4 of them equally. I'm not certain that they're all here. If you're here, would you please come up to the stage? Juman Aref, Usman Najam, Ambereen Muqtadir. So only one of them is here, Sana Zubairi. I know that Ambereen is a senior at Williamsville East High School, and she is going to UB next year. And Sana, who's coming behind me, is a graduating senior at Frontier High School and is also coming to UB. I'm trying to persuade her to major in anthropology, but she hasn't decided yet. And so we wanted to call them up to receive an honorable mention.
Thank you very much, judges, for your wonderful work. And you know, since you have done so well, you'll have to come back next year. So that's the price you pay for your diligence. And before I ask Salam to field a few questions, I just wanted to mention a couple things. And because I think I owe you an answer to some of the things I said last year, whether we followed through on those. And one of them was sports initiative. And we were thinking about establishing a soccer academy. But when we really went into the weeds of it, it didn't materialize the way we thought it will. And therefore, we have replaced that still with a soccer theme of soccer tournaments. So MPAC is in soccer tournament business this year. And on every table, there may be an announcement like this of Eid Day, which is coming up on June 25th, 26th. But we will have the tournament of June 25th. And there will be trophies, etc. And Abdurrahman Farah and Yasser Suleiman are working on this, and I hope you can spread the word amongst your family and friends and youngsters that this will be really a delightful day for them to join in. The second point I wanted to raise is that you do have envelopes on your table for donations, and we do appreciate your donations for MPAC Foundation. As you well know, it's tax-exempt organization, and at the same time is eligible to receive your zakah. And we certainly can use some of your wealth in terms of the programming that we do. So I would hope that you find it in your heart to make some donations. Please do so. And in my earlier recognitions, I didn't recognize Imam Qadri and Imam Yahya and Imam Hanin. They have served our community and continue to serve our community with distinction. And I would also invite you to Tent of Abraham, which is really the pride of, I really value it a lot, which is on June 8th. And the details are in your program copy. But without standing between you and the audience, if anybody has a hard question, we'll put Salam to test right now. Salam?
We'll take cold questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm honored to. Thank you for your comments.
Okay. The first question is always the most difficult one, so let's start with the second question. Yes? So what would we like to see our allies do for us right now? I think one of the most important things as far as we're concerned, like I said, we have hate crimes, we have these other issues that I think we're dealing with. It's a case-by-case basis. But the most important thing I think our allies can do is to get Muslims to speak, especially in the interfaith community, to the national conventions of blank, the National Methodist Convention, the National Lutheran Convention, the National Jewish Convention, the National Evangelical Conventions. If we can get Muslims to talk to those communities who don't necessarily talk to us, because our allies like you are here, we really are grateful. I believe we're standing on your shoulders, that we would have been in internment camps if not for the work of people like you. So first of all, I want to salute you and thank you for your good work for us and for America. And I think the next step is to bridge that divide with those who don't hear from us. So many people have done studies on Islam and Muslims in America, and I believe at this point almost 2/3 of Americans have never met a Muslim or have talked to a Muslim. So they rely on the media, which obviously is a problem in and of itself. So to talk to them directly in their communities is important. Number two, to help us by calling the media and say it's time to hear directly from Muslims and stop just talking about Muslims. If we can get that also from our allies, I think that would be another step forward. And raise more money for Muslim organizations. So as much as we can build the because honestly, institutional capacity is critical. They've shown, the study, Jewish organizations, Christian organizations, obviously they're well-funded. They have endowments that have been in existence for almost 100 years for many of them. Muslims have no endowments. We rely on the contributions. So if we want the American Muslim identity to prosper, then it needs to be financed independently by American Muslims so that they don't have to go overseas to take money from there. We need financial independence to demonstrate our intellectual independence as well.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How does MPAC view itself with respect to other Islamic organizations such as CARE? So is the same domain or different domains? Like how are you complementing each other or?
So we have now conducted almost a dozen national meetings with all Muslim organizations, CARE, ISNA, ICNA, MAS, and so many others. And there's what we call a crisis working group, crisis management working group. We're going to meet at the ISNA convention, inshallah, on July 1st. I think June 30th is the convention this year. That's going to be our at least a dozen meetings at that time. And we work together to say we all have different focus. So CARE is civil rights, MPAC is public policy. ISNA is working with the mosques. Whatever it is, I mean, I'm just trying to give you a definition so that we understand we have different approaches, but we're all working for the same goal, and that goal is to have a voice for Islam in America for the future. So how do we work together to do that? We have it. It's just that we can't write a press release to say MPAC met with CARE to blah, blah, blah. It's beginning to sound like the Middle East. The king of so-and-so met the general of so-and-so, But we don't want to pat ourselves on the back, but I want you to understand we've had several national meetings with all the organizations. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that MPAC national level will have more legislation policies that will affect or impact education, public education?
Great question.
Thank
There,
you.
there are, we were talking at the table. There are 4 policy areas that you have to work on if you want to have a presence in Washington, D.C. That's national security, education, healthcare, and the economy. If you're not involved with any of those issues, you have no presence. If you have no presence, you have no respect. If you have no respect, you're not going to be invited to the table to discuss these policy issues. If you're not invited to the table, you won't have any influence. So in order to have an influence on that, you have to have a presence on one of those 4 policy areas. And education can be one of them, but we look at MPAC to be more of that bridge as an advocate for Muslim educators to be part of the discussion. At this point, obviously, most of Islam and Muslim issues are centered around national security. And while I agree that we cannot securitize the relationship between Muslim communities and the government, we cannot desecuritize U.S. policy. National security is a part of U.S. policy if you want to work on that. And we're either going to be part of the solution towards these national security issues, or we're part of the problem by default. So we have to engage on that issue, but education, healthcare, and the economy are other areas that we need to start thinking about how we can contribute uniquely as American Muslims. The other thing that I think is important in terms of healthcare, we are beginning to work with mental health experts to begin programs in our communities for mental health. Now, a lot of people have a stigma about mental health, that somehow if you have, I don't want to use, depression is a strong word, but if you suffer from anxiety, if you are having a hard time dealing with stress, if you're having family disputes, that somehow that's not enough faith. And you just need to have more faith to resolve those problems. The faith, when you read the Quran, it talks about how you're going to be tested with these issues. It talks about the fear of Musa alayhi salam, the fear of all the prophets. It talks about doubt that the prophets had. It talks about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims at that time who were being attacked, and they were wondering, where's God's help? To the point that they felt there was an earthquake under them. The Quran talks about those in such metaphorical terms that, of course, anxiety is part of the human psyche. So we need mental health to be a part of our community. And so we're organizing Muslim mental health experts to bring those services to the community. And if we don't pay if we don't raise money for mental health in our community, then we need to get public money, tax dollars for it. So that is an area that we are working on right now. Because the identity crisis among young people is definitely an issue. Domestic violence is definitely an issue. Workplace discrimination and post-traumatic stress disorder is definitely an issue. These are issues that we have to, again, have honest conversations about and then figure out a way to bring our Muslim mental health experts to help in these situations. Yes?
You spoke about redefining the Islamic perspective here in the West. I would like to know your opinion regarding the Islamic leadership that currently exists.
Islamic leadership?
Yeah, I'm talking about imams, local priests, scholars, whatever.
Yes.
And also the issue that I feel that is really at the center of something that what we're facing is we don't have a single role model or a single speaker that can take our opinions to the highest levels. For example, you'll always see a Jewish, like a leadership for the Jewish faith, a leadership for the Christian faith. Don't you think part of our issue is that we don't have a leadership?
Give me an
for the Muslim
example
faith?
of a leader of the Jewish faith or a leader
So,
of
for
the
example,
Christian
yes.
faith.
For example, we can say that when Donald Trump was inaugurated, we did not see a Muslim figure representing us.
There was a Muslim at the Republican National Convention.
Not the convention, at the actual inauguration, though.
Oh,
which
I
is
see what
very
you're saying.
important.
Right.
That's our moment of
Right.
identification. What is he going to say on our behalf?
Okay.
And this is what I'm saying. If we can all put our voice, I mean, I want your opinion on it. But don't you think part of our issue is we don't have someone that we are all willing to back? Thank you.
Well, first of all, in terms of the Jewish and Christian representatives, I believe they were Franklin Graham and Marvin Heyer of the Wiesenthal Center, correct? Correct? Those are the two Christian and Jewish leaders, respectively, that were speaking at the inauguration. And correct me if I'm wrong, from our interfaith leaders, I don't think they are the ones chosen by the Christian community because there are a lot of people who don't agree with Franklin Graham in the Christian community. There are a lot of people who don't agree with Marvin Heyer in the Jewish community. They are people selected by Trump. And Imam Muhammad Majid went to offer Quran at the interfaith service for the inauguration. He was under attack by a lot of our community for going there. So we need to first get over this idea whether we should engage or not. Of course we have to engage. Even the Quran says, evil, لا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. Evil and good are not equal. Repel evil with good, so that the one with whom there's enmity becomes as if he is your closest and warmest friend. We have to follow that prophetic example first and therefore solidify this idea that of course we have to engage. We have to engage those who voted for Trump. We have to engage the administration. We have to engage Republicans. We can't just be stuck in our own silos. Once we do that, then I think we can all get on the same page and say, okay, you, Yusuf, you go into the field of policy. You, Fatima, you go into the area of journalism, and so on and so forth, and then we support each other. But we have to have that foundation first. And as far as the role of the scholars are doing great work. I think that's one of the shining examples of our community. But my point is, the activists and the scholars need to get on the same page, because there are issues that the activists see that we're not getting scholarly information about. Therefore, the scholarly information is irrelevant to the people in the community. And then the activists would do things without thinking, and they may do things that don't have an Islamic construct to it. And so it's like the muscle without the brain, or the brain without the muscle. You need both. And the scholars and the activists have to start working more closely together. We have no priesthood in Islam. We have no religious hierarchy in Islam. Therefore, the scholars are just that. They are scholars. They are people that can provide information, but we have to figure out a way to channel it better and to address more relevant issues in our community. Does that answer your questions? Well, okay, we can follow up some more as well. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's very, very good questions. Thank you. Salam alaikum. Thank you.
Thank you, Salam, very much. And before you leave, we have a little gift for you.
Okay, good. I hope it's not roses. I don't think I can take him on a plane.
I don't think he expected. I think it's in reverse. We expect him to come with the check. So we thought we'll present him with a little gift of Buffalo.
That's beautiful.
So that you can
wow.
see this. And it has a logo on the one side, and it says, keynote speaker, Salam Al-Maryadi, with appreciation and thanks for your distinguished service and exceptional commitment to our community. MPAC Western New York Executive Board, 13th Annual Banquet, May 20th, 2017, Buffalo, New York.
Thank you. Thank you, Khalid. Thank you very much. Very honored to be with you and very indebted. And I think God has blessed me to be a worker for the Muslim community. I'm very proud to be a member of this great community. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.
And we are equally honored to have Mayor Byron Brown in the audience, who just walked in. So, Mayor, you would like to say a couple of words?
Good evening, everyone. It's certainly an honor and a pleasure to be with all of you for the MPAC dinner. I apologize for arriving so late. This was a very busy day today. I've been going since 9 o'clock this morning, nonstop, but certainly did not want the day to go by without being able to join you and to thank the members of MPAC, particularly the executive board, for all of the work that you do to promote understanding of Islam and to bring the community together, in understanding. So certainly very pleased to be with you this evening. Very pleased to represent this community as mayor of the city of Buffalo. And one of the things that we have focused on doing in the city is building a city of opportunity for all people so that all of us in this community can grow, can prosper, and can enjoy the renaissance that we are seeing in the city of Buffalo now. We are now very proudly up over $6.2 billion of economic development investment in Buffalo since 2012. Thank you. That shows no sign of slowing down. And as mayor, I want to make sure that no segment and no section of our community or population is left behind. That is similar to the mission, I believe, of Impact, bringing communities together in understanding so that we can work together to build the community that we want it to be. So thank you all very much for allowing me to greet you this evening, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Thank you to our mayor for our great city, the city of good neighbors. Please help me in giving him a round of applause one more time. Now, as we conclude our nights, we've had a lot of fun tonight talking about the contribution of our rising community leaders and the essence of our nation. But as you leave today, let us reflect on tonight's theme, E Pluribus Unum, in Latin, meaning out of many, one. Let it serve as a reminder to all of us how amazing this nation represents, all those that have come to its shores, integrating into the nation under God.
I would like to thank all of the wonderful people who spoke tonight, our honorable guests, our keynote speaker, and outstanding Millennial Award recipients. And let's not forget all of our banquet committee members who worked hard to make this possible tonight. Can we have them stand up, please, so they could be recognized? Thank you for spending countless hours making this possible. And with that, thank you to everyone who came here tonight, and have a wonderful night. Thank you.